Y'all planning for this?
Welcome back, TPR Nation. This is your co-host, Micah Shalansky, with another mini pod. In today's tips from the trenches, we got to talk about allocations. Now, before you stop listening, there is a couple of good things and good stories you might want to take away from here. No, we're not going to get into the religion of exactly how to allocate, but we're going to talk about some other hot topic items. Now, as many of you listeners know, we do not talk theory on this podcast. It is reality, what actually works. Hence, tips from the trenches, actually doing these things. As you know, myself up in Alaska, and Matthew Jarvis, my other co-host that lives in Washington, both independently work very successful practices for financial advisors. And one of the things that we've learned in there is some effective communication tips. And I want to talk to you about a prospect that I was chatting with. And he had met with another advisor, and that other advisor had done some allocation and distribution strategies for him. But the way in which we communicated our allocation strategy won the client over, probably that and many other things, won the client over to want to work with us versus this other advisor. And what was the difference? The difference was buckets. The difference was the way we explain how this allocation works. Now, if Jarvis, my co-host, was on this podcast, this is when I would tease him how buckets are superior, but it feels a little in vain when he's not here, at least to laugh at the jokes as well. And all joking aside, his system of guardrails is very effective, but the main premise here is you must have an effective way of communicating what your allocation strategy is with the client, and not only why you think it's okay, in the client's terms, why does it work? In the client's words, how does it help them achieve their goals? And this is what I want to share with you, a story with a prospect that met another advisor, and the other advisor went through everything and recommended a 70-30 allocation. And they had a nice little pie chart that's 70% in that was going to be in equities, 30% in a slightly other gray color on the chart that they gave them, and that other 30% was going to be in fixed income. And that's the way they allocated. Well, lo and behold, I recommended a very similar allocation, but the client thought mine was completely different, because what I did is I said with the clients, we have a 3-bucket approach. The most important thing that we're doing is making sure you have enough money to last your entire life and a good income that you will never outlive. And to do that, we got to be continually monitoring this. But we're going to set it up that when the next 2008 happens, you can still generate income, because we want to set it up where you never have to sell in a down market, or maybe it's a very rare chance that we may have to, but we want to design it where time is on your side. So we're going to set up a 3-bucket approach where we're going to have 2 years of your living expenses, 2 years of distribution money that you would need to pull out of the stock market, not in the stock market. And we're going to put that in cash. And then we show them a cash bucket of how much that's going to be. If they're spending $50,000 a year, that's $100,000 we're going to have in that cash bucket. Then, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, the next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we have 3 years of your spending in this income bucket. In 3 years at $50,000 a year, that's $150,000. Then I want to make sure we put that in the income bucket. The rest of your money needs to grow in a growth bucket. Now, why are we suggesting, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, that you have 2 years in cash and 3 years in income? Now, while I'm doing this, I'm literally holding up my fingers, and they can see on one hand, there's 2 fingers being held up. On the other hand, I have 3 years, 2 years for cash, 3 years for income, and they can do the math pretty quick in their head that that's 5 years. And I'm saying, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, as you can see, we have 5 years of money that's set aside outside of the stock market, because what if, or I should say, when the next 2008 happens and the stock market falls by 50% and it takes 5 years to recover, we don't want you to have to sell in a down market. We want to set up money that we can keep going with your income stream and give your growth time to go down, yes, but time to go back up in value. And that's the key to our bucket system. And as we went through that, they said, Micah, this just makes a ton of sense. I really like that we have this money that's outside of the stock market that's going to be available to us in income. And when the market goes back down, we can access this pot of money and have an income even in that time. This is what the client said back to me. Well, it was perfect. That was great. Well, what was the difference in my allocation and that other advisor's allocation? All in my presentation. Yes, we can say it was very similar, right? Mine was maybe 75-25 allocation. In fact, not a 70-30 allocation, but I didn't put it in the context that a client wouldn't understand. I put it in the context the client does understand, which is monthly cash flow and how do we make sure they don't sell out in a down market. Now, as you, the savvy advisor, already knows, I also put in their minds, we are long-term investors. We do not sell when the market goes down. That's why we have a cash bucket. That's why we have an income bucket. We have a growth bucket. So when it goes down, we have time for it to go back up. What did I also do? I also set the stage that when the market falls by 30%, I can show them these buckets again. And we actually have a chart inside of the Backstage Pass that actually generates this for you, which is really cool. It's going to show them, look, your cash value, we still have that money set aside. Yes, the growth bucket's down. We don't worry about that. That's a long-term bucket. This goes right to the heart of emotional investing, which is where as advisors, we add the most investment value, is making sure our clients understand that long-term perspective. All right. So what's your action item for this week? You need to take action in what is your allocation presentation? Are you explaining way too much that you shouldn't be explaining about 70-30 allocations and the efficient frontier and alphas and betas and trainers and all this other stuff that clients do not care about? What they care about is their retirement income and achieving their goals. What are you saying in your presentation and your communication to your clients that's speaking their language? We've said this many times on this podcast. Our job is all about effective communication with clients, and it doesn't matter how smart you are as a financial advisor. If you cannot communicate those ideas that are actionable that a client can do, your advice is worthless. A successful advisor is one that is a phenomenal communicator to make sure clients are empowered and encouraged by their advice to make the progress. So get out there, get that done, improve your allocation strategy and how you deliver that to clients. And until next time, happy planning.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and wife.